All right, welcome everyone. We always like to greet the early risers, if you will, when they're coming on. Hey, Michael. I heard the saying that the early bird gets the worm, but there's the reverse side of that, and that's the early worm gets eaten by the bird. So take that for what it's worth. But yeah, we love to have everybody on this, and we're gonna get started promptly on the hour. Hey, Cheryl, how are you? Good, Rick. This is going to be a lot of fun. I seem like I say that a lot, but this one is really going to be a lot of fun because I think what we can do is give some actionable um tactics, right? Those are always the best, especially if you want to try to sell some cars right now. So let's go ahead and get this started. Let me give you a couple of housekeeping items before we turn the time over to our presenter. The first one is we're using Zoom for this. If you're not familiar with Zoom, if you hover over your window, you will see at the bottom, there should be a bunch of menu items. The two that we want you to focus on are Q&A and chat. Now you can use either one. I'll be monitoring both of them, but we would love to get some feedback throughout this. We're going to be talking about some application, and that always seems to get the questions. We'd love to have that your feedback. In addition, anybody who registered for this broadcast, I know how it is in the dealership. All of a sudden you're trying to desk a deal and we've got questions, and there's a car out there, the battery's dead, and there's a customer on it, all that. So we will be sending the recording out to anybody who registered. So you will be able to go back and re-listen to it if you need to, or pick up where you left off. So that's all I have. Without further ado, let's turn it over to Suzanne. She's who we really want to hear from. Suzanne, why don't you introduce yourself and let's get going.
Hey, thanks, Bart. Thanks for having me on this driving sales webinar. Just a little bit about me. My name's Suzanne Reimer. I've been in a marketer for over 25 years. I just put 25 plus now because it's too many, and I don't want to actually say the right number. But I spent a lot of time in Fortune 100 companies in marketing roles, and then pivoted probably about 11 years ago to smaller companies and startups, and found my way to the automotive sector, which I never planned to do, but I sort of stumbled on it. And it's a very dynamic category, and it's kept me in. I worked with a company called I was their first marketer at Automotive Mastermind, if anyone's in the audience is familiar with that. Built that team, the infrastructure, and then was approached by folks at Lotlinx to come here to help them. And so I've been here for the past year and a half, and we've just got I said I would only come back to automotive if there was a really sound product, and I feel like we have a great product, and that's why I joined them. But I'm not here to talk about myself. I'm here to talk about how we can help you in general with some tips and some advice and kind of things that we're seeing through our data, and what's going on in the marketplace as you're in the height and in the summer season. And summer is just a crucial time, and in terms of the changing of the baton of this year's inventory to next year's inventory. You try and move out a lot of inventory during the summer, and the summer is going to bring a little bit of a different stance. Inventory is up, which is a good thing. However, what we're seeing, because of the disruptions and the interest rates and the fluctuating economic conditions, that historical, if you could say historical, I don't know what, are no longer consistent. There's, we need to find, we need to sort of gain ground on what a new normal would be in terms of what's going on right now. And it's not anything we've seen in terms of right before COVID to obviously it's been all topsy-turvy since COVID. But because there's inventory, and because the demand is not quite where it used to be, and there's a skittishness to the customer, the consumer, we really have to make sure that we're applying very strict discipline. And I'll say the word for us and what we preach is going back to strict discipline on inventory management. We definitely talk to a lot of folks, and there's a sentiment that's widespread that they took their eye off the ball on the discipline of inventory during COVID, because obviously there was a challenge with inventory. So you didn't have to be as judicious in terms of really looking at each individual VIN and what's really going on in terms of the history and the approach and how you are, pricing it and promoting it. So if I leave you with anything today, it's really about how we need to sort of go back to rudimentary basics in really managing and looking at your inventory. It's crucial if you're gonna succeed today. So what's making this summer unique? Obviously, you're getting new inventory, but like, I mean, certain brands are flying off the lots. If you have Honda, if you're lucky enough to be Honda or Toyota dealers, they're flying off the lots, but there's, Stellantis and other brands that are definitely challenged. Larger, more expensive vehicles are challenged right now. So it gets difficult. In terms of what we're seeing in our data, which is consistent with Cox and other folks, is that the days supply right now of new vehicles is about 74 days, which is high. So, it's taking more 2.5 months to actually, sell a car right now, which, you wanted to sell it by 30, 60 days tops. Now we're leaning into 74 days. So lots of vehicles out there, and out there longer, which, obviously creates challenges. The economy is getting better, but inflation has eased, and inflation is eased, but interest rates remain high, which is making loans challenging and making making cars affordable. So what a car, that somebody could buy a couple years ago, it's not in their budget at this time. So they have to rethink, purchases right now. And consumers are holding on to cars longer, focusing on maintaining their cars a little bit longer. So we have to think about fresh inventory. The new vehicles are only fresh for a short time. So it's not like you can say, you have to think about each pricing and promotion strategy per VIN. Even when they come in, it can't be sort of like a one size fits all strategy. You have to think about them, literally one vehicle at a time. What's going on in my marketplace, in my trading area? Because if it doesn't, if you, the goal would be to try and get that new vehicle, gone within 60 days tops. So what you're going to need to do, in order to do that, you have to really think strategically, and I'll walk you through that. But you're obviously going to incur extra holding fees, and then you're going to start to mark it down more. So hence you're losing your profitability over the course of time. And that's what you're here for. You're, to sell cars faster, more profitably. So it's really, really important to focus on that. So what we focus on is, looking at your new inventory, but also focusing on inventory that you're carrying over, from what we'll say is fresh to aged. So whatever you consider, some people consider fresh versus, obviously fresh is fresh, but your aged inventory at different intervals, but really looking at what you're carrying over, and maybe putting some emphasis on what you're carrying over versus your fresh, but really thinking about the dynamics of your budget and how you're promoting against fresh versus your what we call carryover units. Markdowns and pricing. We have looked at data on this, and we have some interesting findings, which I'll walk you through, in that, not all markdowns are created equal, and also not all markdowns create impact. So I'll take you through that too. And really understanding what buying demand is, consumer demand is always fluctuating. And so as, the cars prices are going up, the consumer demand changes, and how you market to these consumers needs to change as well. And then, just constantly getting very specific in terms of your sales strategies, and really breaking that down to make sure we're adapting to what this market looks like. So getting into it in terms of, we touched upon some of this, but basically what the first two bullet points we already covered, I already covered, but It's really important because there's so much data behind an individual VIN that it's humanly impossible for someone to actually be able to calculate and compute all the data that is needed to really make decisions about how to price, how to promote, how to make sure, where the consumer demand is, what's going on with your, your competitors in your trading area in terms of where they're pricing their vehicles. We are preaching to, for dealers to use predictive analytics because they can, take massive amounts of data that, cannot be even touched from a human standpoint and really look at that and create and create those patterns. That's what AI and machine learning is. But what we're using it for in particular at Lotlinx is to help you accurately predict when vehicles have the highest propensity to turn and when you should be promoting them and what are the right price points to get that transaction. So I just have a question, out there, yeah, I don't know if you want to answer it in the chat or Bart, are you using, do you know if you're using predictive analytics when it comes to inventory management? I just would love to understand, who is using it and who isn't, or do they not even know what that means?
Yeah, and while we wait for that, if anybody wants to chat in, you mentioned the word that I believe you used was discipline, which is it's very interesting word to use when it comes to talking about your inventory. And in years past, with velocity and Dale Pollock, it was always, there was a disciplined approach. But since COVID, I think a lot of those rules went out the window. But you're implying that they're back, and with there are a lot of inventory management tools that will talk about some transactional data on which I should pay for the car, what's the day supply, etc. And you're overlaying this, and yes, and here's what we predict that customers, are the vehicles that you have that they're going to want, the vehicles that you have that they don't want. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, we sort of aligned. So we study consumer buying behavior, like not only so, what shoppers are buying, where they're, where are they transacting in terms of what publishers and websites are they on? And so we have that stuff baked into our machine learning. And then we also look at, and then we marry that up with, and then we look at what's happening in the trading areas in terms of where you're priced versus your competitors. And so we kind of align all that to make predictions, based on, not only where can we get somebody, but how can we get somebody and where the right pricing needs to be to move the vehicle and what channels it needs to be on.
Nice, thank you.
Anybody answer at all?
No, not yet.
It's quiet audience. They must be hungry. It's still lunchtime. So in terms of markdowns, this is what we touched upon before. Our data is basically showing, we look at a sale, the road to the sale, and how markdowns can impact them. And the initial thing, if a dealer sees something's not selling, your initial thing is to, initiate a markdown. However, what we're seeing, that first markdown has very little impact and effect for creating more interest and more visibility to drive someone to their vehicle detail page. So what we're seeing is that markdown isn't necessarily doing anything for you. So why risk the profit if you don't need to? So what we're seeing is that again, there's this misconception that a markdown will automatically spur on extra VDP views. So 69% of views and 76% of new listings had 0 views between markdowns. I mean, that is a lot. You're looking at, 3/4 of your inventory that's having 0 impact from markdowns, from the first. So then it takes about 3 to 4 markdowns before selling a unit, and what we're seeing is that dealers are doing it over the course of each month or so. They're stretching that out. So what we're looking at is if they took a deeper markdown faster, that could help. but also taking a look at, how are you driving consumers to your VDPs, and is that creating impact in terms of the publishers or the advertising that you're doing? Do you know and can you see if how it impacts each individual VIN, and how much you're spending on each individual VIN to make the most out of even any of those markdowns. And even if you might be able, if you look at it in the first place, you might not have to mark down, because just the extra VDPs, making sure you're really pushing people to your VDPs. And what we find is most dealers don't know. We have a tool called a VinView Optimizer that, we actually provide it for free for customers. We would need inventory data, and we would need your Google Analytics. And we can show you at the VIN level, like what advertising is driving to each individual vehicle detail page. So you can see, like, and we can look at the dollars spent on that, and like how much money are you spending and how many VDP views are you getting from your different publishers. And what we're finding is that 80% of that is going to VINs that would have sold themselves anyway. And 80% of that is not going to the VINs that you've probably marked down and need that push. So that's part of the equation. That's a problem. It's because your advertising is not going to the right places, and it's, it's good branding, but if you're trying to, really push volume and convert into a sale, you really need to look at what I call performance, advertising, to really make sure those VDPs, perform for you and there's conversion. So, and all of this, again, understanding all that stuff is how we use our predictive analytics to help you, really look at what's really happening at the VIN level. So, and the other challenge here is that, the new cars, people are keeping their models longer. Like, we're with an average age is climbing to 12.6 years. I think that was like, I don't know for sure, but I think it was like 10 years, not that long ago. So, so people are holding on to cars. Cars are staying better longer, with less, maintenance needs and costs. So that's a challenge. So, so we have to make sure you're aligning your pre-owned cars and your new cars, and really thinking about how you're marketing to the customer based on this scenario. And so again, the more proactive you can be in thinking about all these different scenarios, the better you're going to be in terms of used cars versus new cars, fresh inventory versus used inventory, and really, really having strategies for that. Again, you can't just think of, I'm looking at all my used cars, I'm looking at all my new cars. I think you have to break it down by cars that are over 30,000 plus, and what does that look like, to cars that are under that. So, EV, and where does the EV, and hybrids stand in terms of what demand looks like for them, and what kinds of, offers and deals, and how you need to promote them. And then in terms of, it's an odd market right now. And so the pricing, there's such an emphasis on right pricing right now because of the conditions, that it's critical not only for your own profitability, but in terms of how you're seen in the marketplace. So you really need to spend time in terms of, again, breaking down where you're taking margins, where you're putting emphasis on your advertising in terms of the carryover. If you're carrying over inventory, you might want to take that as a priority versus the cars that, probably will sell with very little to no promotion. So making sure your advertising is going to those, carryover units first, and then the newer units second. Things like that. But it's not a one size fits all. And that's where we use, we leverage, the machine learning to really let the data tell us what we need to do. And the more you can let the data drive the strategies, the more successful we find dealers are. So, but again, it's all about setting clear strategies, taking a really deep dive in your data on your inventory, and then leveraging machine learning as to help you to, increase increase your return and boost your margins. So what can you do as a dealer? Understand your specific trading areas. So trading areas are changing right now. So and we let the data drive the trading area discussion too, because consumers, there's car delivery right now. So consumers are looking beyond their typical what's a local dealer. They're looking outside. And so our data is suggesting that. So you need to open up, if you're, spending advertising, you may need to open that geography wider and cast a wider net, which could be helpful to you. And we've seen by doing that, we've had a lot of dealers who are working with us expand their trading area to places they never thought they would be before. So really understanding your trading area, what does the demand look like in your area? What are the specific, economic strengths and weaknesses in terms of, what is the average, car selling for in your area? Understanding all of that can help you, again, drive better decisions. And then understand who your buyers, who and where your buyers are. So, really using these tools to help you understand who is shopping, how they are shopping in terms of, obviously if it's mobile, but like their shopping behaviors, their researching behaviors, and how they're engaging with your website and any of your digital assets, and like what publishers you're advertising on, and knowing and understanding their effectiveness is really, really important. And then, one thing that, we do well here is that, we've mastered promoting to the VIN level. So we can really, our number one priority is making a dealer more profitable, and not wasting money. There's a lot, advertising, it can be, a blessing and a curse. It can be really expensive. But it can be expensive, but if you're selling cars, then you shouldn't care about that expense because the ROI is going to be there. So really evaluating not just impressions and not just clicks, but actually looking at, is your advertising penetrating and converting to a sale, and really breaking it down. And that can be done. All this can be done right now. So just make sure that you are, really looking at a VIN level, looking at the, right price, right time, right, right consumer, and right publishers, and making sure. And again, this is, you can't do this alone. You have to do it with the help of machine learning and AI. So that's really all I had. I'd like to be short and sweet and quick because I know your time is valuable. So I'd like to just kind of keep it very single-minded. But inventory management has evolved. It's very complex because there's a lot of things, to look at in terms of all the varying areas. And, but there's help. I mean, the good news is there's help for you. And you can, leverage those tools to, make you smarter and faster and better and more profitable. So Lotlinx has a bunch of several free resources. We have on our website, we have a market report, which can show you how you're faring in the market, in your area, used versus new. We do a free risk report where we can show you where your risk areas are, and things you might do to consider, attacking that. And again, not selling you anything, just showing you the data. And then we have lots of insights on our website under lotlinx.com/insights. So there's, good news. There's help, and any one of our sales team would, love to chat with you, even if it's just exploratory, informationally, things like that, because it's a lot to digest. It's a lot to take in, and I would check out some of the case studies too if you're interested.
Awesome. Thanks, Suzanne. Can you go back a slide? I've got a couple questions for you. Anybody has any questions, please feel free to put them in chat. I'm really interested in a couple things here. It seems like that 2024 is, I'm hearing a lot of people say we got to get back to the basics now. Like it's back to business as usual. If there's such a thing, COVID's over now. And we maybe have developed some bad habits, or we've slipped away. We've had some scope creep, right? From what we used to do that works really well. And what I see here is this is the sweet spot for artificial intelligence, machine learning, is freeing up the humans in the dealership to have higher to worry about and focus on the higher, more productive activities, and let the machine learning parse the data. So I'm really fascinated with this. Maybe this, we should call it this handoff between, okay, now I have this stuff. Now I have to use it. Um, is there, do you have any insight there on maybe how to set yourself up to where I can capitalize and get the most out of the data that I'm getting? Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
yeah, you have to make sure that you're getting the right data. You know, there's a lot of folks out there saying they have AI, they have machine learning. Some folks think the AI is just Chat GPT. It's beyond that right now. Machine learning is really modeling and modeling the right data. And it's also tying back to what are you asking the data to do? Like, what do you need from the data? And so, if if the data can answer your questions, then you're using the right data. And answer your questions or concerns about, where you are. And so that's how you really get started is really laying out, what are your overall goals and what are your overall strategies, and breaking it down. And then what data is available to me? Where do I access this? Who has it? It's a very, when I first came into this vertical, I was shocked at how many different vendors there were, and they all kind of say the same thing, and they all, some do some of what other ones do, but not all of what other ones do. And I felt bad. I feel bad for dealers because it's like a minefield out there. And you need a consultant just to, tell you how to work with consultants and vendors in this industry. Because there's a lot out there and it's very complicated. Look, AI is going to be, it is already big, but it's going to be big. I mean, it's going to be bigger than, when we said, oh, the web, the World Wide Web back then is going to be big. It's no different than that now, but with AI and machine learning. And, I think it's scary, it's scary to like have that feeling of losing control, like, and that's what we're trying. Our whole mission is to, make sure dealers feel like they're in control of their own operations and their budgets and, their customer. And so this is where it can help. And those who succumb to the, that, handing over are the dealers that are actually who are embracing it, or the ones that are actually reaping the benefits already. And so, I implore dealers to, try and get on the bandwagon quicker than later, because you don't want to be left behind. And we're seeing a big difference of those who really embrace it versus those who don't. And I think you can easily poke holes in, vendors that don't have necessarily the right data. Like a lot of times they don't necessarily have their own data scientists who've been working on it for many years. Models take years and years and years to perfect, and you're always improving and you're always bettering them by, there's new data partners out there who have amassed different data that actually can cultivate and make, the models better. So, for example, like we've been doing this for 12 years, and, we've obviously expanded, modified, brought in new partners into our data set to just, make it better. And we're always improving every day. I mean, that's what, data scientists strive to do, is make their models, as close to perfect as possible. They're never perfect because the dynamics are changing every day, but that's what they strive to do. So, that's a watch out if somebody doesn't have their own data scientist. it's really delve into like, what is in the data, where does the data come from and who do you partner with for that data, and what types of elements are in that data. I think that's important to ask as well.
Yeah, that's really insightful. I feel like that's what you're saying is, and I want to clarify, when you say when you give it over to the AI, it's not it's not changing your 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 organization. It's not changing the structure of the way you're set up. It's modifying your role. I guess the analogy we always go back to is, instead of the grocery store having 32 cashiers, it's someone who can monitor self-checkout and that station. So the job of specifically what we're focusing on or talking about is used car manager and the marketing team. It's focusing on, now I have these takeaways. Now I can do something with them instead of guess. And guess might
Correct.
be
And
a little extreme, right?
have validation that something's working more specifically or not than it is. So I think it's a lot of that too. It's allowing you to have time to focus on, the bigger picture and what you're really trying to do and how you can be more profitable as a dealer in total. So it gives you time back in a lot of ways because you're focusing on things more efficiently and smarter. So,
Suzanne, we appreciate it. This has been really, really helpful. This deck will go out to everyone. So those links on the last page that she showed you, you will be able to access those and go to some of these resources. I think the more that we can educate ourselves and our teams about how we're going to use this and when we get it, what's the most effective way to deploy it is going to be really helpful.
yeah, and we're also going to give you, we just launched this week a summer sell down guide. So there's some great tips and information in there as well, that somewhat which was in here, but then some others as well.
All right, we really appreciate it. Thank you everyone for hopping on. We know you got a lot going on. It's busy time. This is going to be really helpful to maybe move these people from, move some of these old age inventory if you have some, and get you going and develop those good habits. So thank you, Suzanne. We appreciate it.
And no, thanks for having me, and everybody enjoy your day and have a good summer.
All right. Thank you everyone for hopping on. We hope to see you on future driving sales webinars.